Hey everyone, Brendan Snyder here. How are you? Thanks so much for joining me and welcome to Simply the Best Metal Album. So, in the world of metal, there are a lot of amazing albums out there, but the term metal can be very generic in what it means, meaning a lot of different things. Fortunately, we have genres to divide that up, delineate the different musical styles. And so for this video here, I will be running through 5 albums that are simply the best in their respective genres of metal. But before we get into that, if you are new to my channel and haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do. Also leave a comment, hit like, all those things do help support my channel. I would greatly appreciate it. And of course, as an added bonus, by turning on notifications, you're going to stay up to date on all that's going on in the world of rock and metal with this Simply the Best Metal Albums. All right, so kicking things off, we're starting with just the baseline of metal and what today they pretty much refer to as traditional metal, although back in the day it was simply just called metal. And so for that, we've got Black Sabbath, Paranoid from 1970, their second studio album, featuring, of course, the classic lineup. The album title itself was supposed to be War Pigs, and of course, if you look at what the album cover is, that might make more sense to you than the term Paranoid, but they changed it at the last moment. 7 of the 8 tracks that are on here are classic, in my opinion, featuring some real signature standout tunes that have become part of their, iconic history. The song War Pigs itself, Iron Man, Paranoid, and that song was even an afterthought, much the way the title was. It was because they didn't have enough material for the album. They went in taking only 25 minutes to record that song. I mean, pretty amazing. Such an iconic song, written in 25 minutes, apparently even written and recorded in 25 minutes. Now, a lot of you guys would probably pick the debut album. And of course, I think that one may have, written the book for heavy metal, but this one here defined it. So I've got to go with Paranoid on this one. I think this one here really kind of became the blueprint for what everything is that came after it, which is why at least I'm picking this as my selection for best traditional metal album. Okay, next one up, we're moving into the new wave of British heavy metal. So we're staying on that line of traditional metal, but a decade later, it's turning into something else coming out of Britain. That's where we get the new wave of British heavy metal. And for that, Iron Maiden, Peace of Mind, 1983, their 4th studio album. Now, this was the second one to feature new frontman Bruce Dickinson, at least new-ish back then. And it did feature new drummer for this album, Nico McBrain, who has then been with them for the rest of their career and still there today. This album here has been certified for sales of 1 million copies in the US, which I find amazing anytime metal albums do hugely well like that, what that says about a band. It's certainly a great album, if nothing else. This album here is where I think the band finally found their footing. I mean, the 3 albums that came before this, amazing. And again, a lot of you probably would pick Number of the Beast. That one has just never clicked with me, not as much as this one here and some of the other ones going forward. This one here, I think, had the better production on it. The quality of songs are super high and consistent throughout this record. It's got iconic songs that define the band, Where Eagles Dare, Revelations, Flight of Icarus, and the absolute top of that, The Trooper. The whole album, though, is solid from start to finish, and even the deep cuts on this album are really, really good and stand out. Die With Your Boots On and To Tame a Land, which I think are absolute stellar songs. I mean, you could pretty much cherry pick anything off of this album, and for a non-Iron Maiden fan or somebody who didn't know about them, I think it would turn them on to the band. And in that regard, I think that's one of the reasons, at least, why I'm focusing on this album here, making it my favorite, not only of their catalog, but of the new wave of British heavy metal movement. All right, next up, we're starting to speed things up here, and in the early 80s, thrash metal came onto the scene, kind of taking over and redefining what metal was. And so for that, Metallica, Master of Puppets, 1986. This one here is just an absolute iconic album. So many different things have set the tone for what this is and where this album would fit within the pantheon of metal. But Metallica Master of Puppets is certainly one of those upper echelon albums. This was their third studio album. It was the last one to feature bassist Cliff Burton, who unfortunately, due to tragedy, his life was cut short, which then also cut short the promotion of this album. And again, what I find amazing, talking about sales figures, is that without music video, without radio play, with their tour being cut short, like all of that, the album itself sold 1 million copies at the time. Of course, it's gone on to sell a lot more, 7 million copies. In fact, again, just setting the tone for how, amazing this album is. But again, another album where I think the band really came into their own. They came together, defining what the sound of thrash metal would be. The album itself, great songs, amazing production. I think it's far better production than the first two albums. And for me, a lot of where I stand on these albums, which ones make great albums, for me, it's got to come down to not just the songs, but it's also got to come down to the production, the quality, the consistency. There's a whole range of things like that that I always look at when selecting what I consider sort of the creme de la creme or the best albums. This one has some amazing epic songs on it. Battery, the title track Master of Puppets, which of course is currently riding high due to it having been included in Stranger Things. You've got everybody, including little teeny boppers, suddenly becoming Metallica fans due to that. And I don't think it's just the Stranger Things aspect. It's that the music is so good in its own right that when it's given a new avenue to shine in, people get into it. A lot of times metal music isn't given the same promotion as, say, rock music is or pop music, and thereby it doesn't become as big. But when it's included in some of these zeitgeist moments, the way that Stranger Things is sort of taken over media and everything that is out there. In this case, Metallica can really shine, pick up a lot of new fans. I think that's great. It's also got Welcome Home Sanitarium on it. Personally, though, my favorite track on here is the instrumental song, Orion. I think that song is simply to die for. Okay, next one up that we've got here, we're getting even faster. We're moving into speed metal. Slayer and South of Heaven, fourth studio album produced by Rick Rubin, who of course has worked with so many different artists. I mean, everyone from rap artists like the Beastie Boys to Neil Diamond, Bob Dylan. So Rick Rubin, really kind of an amazing person who's moved around and done rap and rock, probably even consider some pop within all of that stuff. But he really kind of got his start in everything in metal, and Slayer being one of them. But great having him on board for such an iconic album here. This album's been certified gold in the US, and for speed metal, that is really amazing. Now, while this album here represents less speed than the previous album, Rain and Blood, that one was even faster than this. I find this album to be far superior over those two different albums. The band basically realized it was never going to top the speed that was created for Rain and Blood. And instead of, they didn't want everything to be compared to it, so they decided to change up the tempo for this album, which, in my opinion, I think that led to them emphasizing some of the best parts of the music. So mixing up the tempo, changing things so we don't just have one homogenous sort of speed fest going on in it, really helped emphasize and make some of this stuff stand out. Also making it a bit more accessible of an album. Standout tracks on here, the title track, South of Heaven, which is actually the only single released from here, is simply a stellar track. I love this song. I could listen to this one day in, day out. Silent Scream is another great one. Live Undead, the title of it being taken from their 1984 live album. I always find that interesting when a band has a title of an album and then somewhere down the road they write the song, and yet neither of the two corresponded to one another other than just the coincidence of the title. And Mandatory Suicide, which is a concert staple, never released as a single. But again, another one of those songs that stands out to me that I really love. But all 9 of the original songs on here are amazing. And then they do a cover of the Judas Priest song Dissident Aggressor, which adds to the overall appeal of the album, but in my opinion, it's just simply the icing on the cake because you've already got so much great stuff at that point that you add this one cover to it, and it's just something great, making this here a stellar metal album. All right, now we're not continuing to speed things up here. We're going in a different direction, and it's kind of almost just in name only. But we're going to do glam metal. Poison, Flesh and Blood, 1990, their 3rd studio album produced by Bruce Fairbairn. This is where everything came together for this band. The album combines the party rock of its first album, the lyrical depth and different sounds that they explored on the 2nd album. And then they pull out and add into it the more soulful blues undertones in here, making this one simply the best within its genre. The album itself would go on to sell 3 million copies in the US. Big delineation difference there between the other metals we've been talking about and this one. But as I said, glam metal is really kind of a misnomer because it's more straight up rock than anything. But we're going by genre, we're going by titles, so glam metal has to be included in metal here. Featured top 40 hits on the Billboard Hot 100. Unskinny Bop went all the way to number 3, and when a rock song can go that high on the charts, I think it says something about the quality of music. Something to Believe In, the ballad, went to number 4. Ride the Wind was a top 40 at 38, and Life Goes On was top 40 at 35. But in my opinion, there's even better songs that are the deep cuts on this album. Valley of Lost Souls, Let It Play, Come Hell or High Water, and Life Loves a Tragedy, making this one here simply a glam metal masterpiece. So there you go, 5 albums that are simply the best in their respective genres of metal. I'm sure you guys have different opinions on which ones are the best albums in those genres. Let me know, leave your comments below, and we'll have a great conversation about all of that. But there you go, hope you enjoyed the video. Take care, everyone, and I'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.